Good afternoon, Evil, and I will tell you one story of a good viewing. I never imagined I'd leave a note for myself. Let alone this kind of note. It wasn't there the night before, I'm sure of it. My bathroom mirror had been clean, unmarked, reflecting nothing but the dull tiles and the dim light from the bathroom ceiling. But there it was the next morning, tucked into the corner of the mirror, wedged just enough into the frame that I might have missed it if I wasn't already on edge. The handwriting was unmistakably mine, sharp, tight, and slanted, but it didn't feel like it had come from my hand. The letter was folded neatly, almost obsessively so, as if someone had carefully placed it there with more attention than I would have ever given to such a thing. I unfolded it carefully. Running away, do not turn your head. Do not look back. Do not listen. No matter what. You have 7 days. Start preparing. She will find you on the 7th night. I'm sorry. I tried. I failed. You. At first, I laughed. A hollow, nervous laugh. It felt like some sort of sick joke, some prank someone had played on me. Maybe it was even a dare from an old friend, a bizarre attempt at scaring me. But there was something off about the note, something that gnawed at me in the pit of my stomach. The way the paper felt too smooth, the edges too crisp, the ink too perfect. My hand trembled as I touched the words. I didn't feel brave anymore. I threw the note in the trash. But when I looked back, I noticed something odd. The trash can lid was closed, neatly. Almost like something had been placed there carefully. I went to bed that night, convinced that I just overreacted, that it was nothing more than an overactive imagination. That was until the dreams started. I dreamt of mirrors. A maze of them. They lined endless, twisting hallways, their surfaces tarnished or fogged, but always reflecting something wrong. My reflection didn't move in sync with me. It smiled when I frowned. It gestured when I did nothing. It was a perfect mimic until it wasn't. It began to move on its own. It grinned wider and wider, its mouth unhinging like a snake. I ran, oh how I ran, but the mirrors stretched, warped, never giving me an escape. It was then that I realized my reflection was chasing me. I woke up gasping for air, my throat dry. I could still hear its laughter ringing in my ears. I checked my bathroom mirror immediately. Nothing was out of the ordinary. No note. But the air felt heavy. Cold. The note was on my nightstand. Still folded. Still pristine. It hadn't been there before. I hadn't put it there. I hadn't touched it. I stared at it for hours. Day 1. I thought it was over. The note was a prank, a figment of my imagination, some part of me trying to remind myself of the stress I'd been under. I convinced myself that everything was fine. The anxiety, the weird dream, it was all just coincidence. So I tossed the note aside. But the unease lingered, curling like smoke under my skin, just out of reach, leaving me restless. But then things started to shift. The shadows in my apartment began to behave strangely. I'd stand in the kitchen, facing the window as sunlight poured in. My shadow would stretch across the floor, long and steady. But then it wasn't just my shadow anymore. There was another one. Smaller. Quicker. Twitching. I stared at it for a few seconds too long before it snapped back into place, moving in sync with me once more. When I looked around the room, there was nothing there. Nothing out of place. But the unease was growing. Day 2. I felt eyes on me. Everywhere. I didn't dare tell anyone what had happened. Who could I tell? The note was absurd, wasn't it? I had written it. No one would believe me. I didn't believe me. But I was afraid to be alone. I stayed in my apartment all day, avoiding windows and mirrors. Every creak of floorboards sent my heart racing. That night, when I came back from the grocery store, I found a new message. It wasn't written in ink. It wasn't carved. It wasn't even written by hand. It was condensation. The mirror. I hadn't turned it on. The fog hadn't been there when I left. 5 days left. Get ready. I backed away, my heart pounding. I hadn't touched the mirror. The steam from the shower hadn't been there. I was sure of it. But there it was. The words. Clear as day. I shut off all my lights, pulled the curtains tightly closed, and locked the door. But the whispers began. Quiet at first. Almost imperceptible. Faint words that brushed against the edge of my hearing. I couldn't make them out. But they were there, just behind me, like they were coming from inside my own head. Day 3. The whispers didn't stop. I went to the police. I told them I thought I was being stalked. That someone was breaking in, leaving me messages, somehow getting access to my apartment. The officer who showed up was kind enough. He checked the place, though he didn't seem particularly concerned. He took notes, asked a few questions, told me he'd look into it, then handed me a card with his contact information. I almost cried with relief. But when I came back home, the worst of it happened. I found a text on my phone. Don't trust him. He's not real. The number was a string of zeros. 00000000000. I stared at it for a long time. My head spun. Then the officer's card began to change. It bled. Not red ink. Not any sort of stain. No. It bled the way old photographs do when they're soaked in water. The color began to drip, seeping from the edges like a viscous substance that spread faster than it should have. I turned the card over. For days left. She's closer. She knows you're afraid. My stomach churned. I couldn't breathe. I dropped the card, but when I looked down, it was gone. The room was cold. Day 4. I woke up to a smell. A scent I couldn't place at first. Sweet, but wrong. Like flowers that had rotted, something decayed beneath the petals. It clung to my skin, my clothes, the air itself. It followed me no matter where I went. By night, I was too terrified to sleep. I turned off every electronic device in the apartment. Every light, every screen, every piece of technology that might be watching me. But when I closed my eyes, the sound of static filled the room. It wasn't the hum of a TV or a radio, it was coming from inside my head. Then the voice? My own voice. Sobbing. Begging for mercy. Please don't come. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'll try again. Don't take me. Not yet. I jumped up shaking. The TV was on, glowing brightly in the dark. Static filled the screen only for the image to shift. It was me. But it wasn't. It was wrong. My face was distorted, stretched. A twisted smile that looked like it had been painted on, jagged and far too wide. I smashed the TV in a panic, not caring if I cut myself on the glass. Day 5. I could feel her watching me. Her eyes were always there, somewhere in the room, just behind me. I started packing my things, throwing clothes into a bag without thought. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to leave. But no matter where I went, she was there. In the window of a store. In the reflection of the coffee shop window. Always watching, always waiting. And that was when I saw it, my reflection. But it wasn't a reflection. It was a warning. Day 6. I couldn't escape. The reflections of myself continued to torment me. At first, they'd just been strange, a flicker in the corner of my eye, the faintest movement that wasn't mine, but now they were full-blown horrors. In every window, every pane of glass, every reflective surface, I saw her. It was her. The woman. The one from the motel window. Her long, wet hair hung in thick clumps around her face, her eyes far too wide, staring out at me from every reflection. But the worst part was that she wasn't still. She moved. No matter where I went, no matter what mirror I stared into, I saw her shifting, tilting her head, smiling that wrong smile. She didn't blink. Her eyes never left me. I thought I could outrun her. I tried over and over. But I couldn't. I couldn't escape. The city felt like a maze, one that closed in on me every time I turned a corner. And every time I caught a glimpse of myself in a store window, I saw her there, her reflection just behind me. Her hand almost touching my shoulder. I couldn't look away. I went to a bar that night, desperate to be around people, thinking that maybe, just maybe, I could pretend for a little while that things were normal. That this was all some sick fantasy, some bad dream that would fade if I just kept moving. But as I stepped through the door, I froze. There she was. Not behind me, not a reflection this time, but standing at the bar, facing me. Her hair was wet, matted to her forehead, but her eyes, those eyes, still gleamed with the same empty hunger. She tilted her head slowly, and then, as though she recognized me, she smiled. That smile? It was wide, too wide. The corners of her mouth stretched impossibly far, revealing teeth too sharp, too white, too wrong. She stepped forward, one slow step after another, her movements jerky, unnatural. And then the whispers started again. They weren't in my head anymore. They were coming from the room itself, from every corner, every shadow. The voices, soft, urgent, insistent, began to repeat something I'd heard before. Don't turn your head. Don't look back. Don't listen. No matter what. The words tangled in my mind, suffocating me, drowning me in the realization that if I turned, if I looked at her, she would get me. The people around me were oblivious, laughing, talking, drinking, none of them noticing the nightmare unfolding right before them. My heart raced. My breath caught in my chest. I knew what I had to do. I ran. Day 7. It was the last day. I could feel it in my bones. The air felt heavier, thick with anticipation. Every corner, every dark alley I passed seemed to whisper my name, to pull me towards something I couldn't see. But I could feel it. She was getting closer. I had no doubt about that anymore. I could almost hear her breathing, just behind me, just around the next corner. Every step I took felt like it was a step toward my own destruction. I tried to prepare. I packed a bag, grabbed my car keys, and headed out the door without a plan. My phone had been useless for days. Texts came from numbers I didn't recognize, telling me that it was too late to run, that I would never make it, that she was already there. But I couldn't just stay, not after everything. Not after the reflections and the whispers. The notes. The dreams. It was 3 p.m. when I finally left. The streets were empty, almost too empty. The sky was overcast, gray clouds hanging low and heavy as if the world itself knew what was coming. I couldn't tell if she was watching me yet, but I felt it. Every nerve in my body was screaming, telling me that she was right there. Her presence was suffocating, like the air had thickened into a fog of dread. I drove for hours, but I never got far. I took back roads, small highways, trying to escape the city, trying to outrun the feeling that had clung to me for the past 6 days. It wasn't the kind of fear you could outrun with a car. No matter how fast I went, it was always there, just behind me. That constant feeling that she was closing in. And then the road began to twist. The trees grew thicker. The air grew colder. The sky grew darker. I knew what was happening. I could feel it. She was coming. I reached for the rearview mirror and now. The car swerved. I jerked the wheel too hard, the tires screeching, and before I could react, I felt the car lurch, careening off the road and into a ditch. When I opened my eyes, everything was wrong. The air smelled like damp earth, the scent of rot mixing with the sweet smell I couldn't escape. My body ached from the impact, but worse was the feeling that something was watching me, standing just out of view. I crawled out of the car, trembling, my hands slick with sweat. I turned in a circle, desperate to make sense of what had happened. The road, my car, everything was gone. All that remained was a field of tall, dead grass. And her. She stood at the edge of the field, her wet hair hanging in clumps. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her mouth hung open, her jaw dislocated, her eyes wide, too wide, just staring at me. Her hands stretched out toward me, fingers too long, nails jagged, like claws. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My feet couldn't move. I was frozen in place, paralyzed by terror. I could hear the whispers now, clearer than ever. You shouldn't have looked back. I didn't turn. I couldn't. But it didn't matter. As she began to approach, her form shifting like it was made of smoke, her face stretching into something that wasn't quite human, I knew. It was too late. Thank you very much. See you all in the next video.